Hey guys, it's Sign here with Hobbies and Man once again, and today we're doing another episode of the Sword and Sorcery Book Club. Today we're looking at Conan the Barbarian, issue 25, which is a special commemorative issue, kind of an anniversary issue. This is the celebration of over 2 years worth of Conan the Barbarian and this new edition by Heroic Signatures, Titan Comics, Jim Zub, the writer, and a bunch of different artists as the artists, right? And this is a very special issue. Now, this is really awesome. I really loved it. I think it'll be a very fun issue for a lot of people. And the artistry that is involved here is amazing, right? It's not just, Jim Zub's ability to write and kind of have this interesting kind of introspective feel to the story, this kind of like meta vibe that doesn't feel annoying like a lot of meta style writing does nowadays in comic books. But also, it's not just that, but it's also that Alex Horley went bananas on this book. Like, he is awesome. His art is phenomenal. It is amazing. There may be some, slight complaints you could have here and there about maybe like the scanning of the, pictures into, the canvas into a digital medium, because specifically on this first page, it looks pixelated, even though it's actually, I think, the texture of the canvas itself that we're looking at, that we see, but everything else looks freaking amazing. It's just that one page feels a little bit less good than everything else, but Alex Horley knocked it out of the park. This is amazing. It looks gorgeous. The way he draws Conan is awesome. The different interpretations of the different stories that are mentioned here is amazing. The way he draws Thok and Belit and Zenobia and, all of the different characters here. The wizard character that shows up here is very cool as well. He reminds me a little bit of, Elric maybe, or Necron from Fire and Ice, right? That sort of different, kind of like not human, magical being kind of character, right? He's basically like a elf type archetype, or Elric of Melniboné is, right? He is the inspiration for the Targaryens and stuff like that. And so I like that in the Conan series, the bad guy that kind of memorializes Conan looks kind of like Elric. I think that's fun. But this is an amazing, amazing book. There are a few complaints I have, and I have, some praise for it that I'll mention more directly. And I'll tell you a story, about what the book is actually about. But I bought 3 variants of this. I didn't actually buy all of them yet, but I did buy this one. This is the cardstock variant, which is $8. And the reason that I bought this variant was because my understanding was that the cardstock cover can be removed, and inside you still have a normal cover. So this book will not be trashed just because you remove it, right? The inside is the normal cover. And so I assumed, if it's a cardstock variant, it means I'm basically getting a free poster, right? Or maybe not free because I'm paying $2 extra for it, right? But that turned out to not be the case, because Titan, in their eternal wisdom, decided to put this right here at the back of the book. And so the nice cardstock edition of the painting is tarnished by this. And so when I open it, it has a freaking annoying, price tag on it. That would be fine normally, like I wouldn't really care. I would still put it up, and I will still put this up. But the fact that the interior version, which is the normal paper quality one, doesn't have it, means that they could have not put it on this one, and they chose to do so. Now, I understand that it's probably easier for stores, but also, if I paid $2 extra for this, why did you do this? I'm sure they knew that people were going to take this cover off and use it as a poster, because what is the point of doing this, of putting in the cardstock variant and then a normal copy of it underneath, if that's not the point, right? If it's not the point, that you should remove this and put it up as a poster. And so I am pretty frustrated, because I paid $2 extra to get this poster, and I'm not getting it, because this is not good for a poster, right? And maybe it's not that big a deal, but it's $2, man. That is like a third of the price because the normal book is $6, right? And it's not what I was expecting, and it's not what I wanted, and it seems like it's not what they were supposed to be offering either. And so I'm pretty upset about that. But that is basically the only complaint I have about this story. In general, this is a great, wonderful book. It's probably the most high quality feeling comic book I've ever bought in my life. It feels awesome. It has a nice heavy texture to it, a heavy weight to it. The texture of the cardstock is very, very nice. It's very beautiful and thick, and it's not super duper kind of shiny. It's a bit matte, and so the painting that Alex Horley does looks good, and it works, right? The interior also functions really, really nicely, except for that one page that I showed you, which is basically the second page in the story. This has a texture that maybe you can't appreciate there. And looking at it, I stared at it for quite a while. I understand that it's the texture of the canvas, but because I'm used to a digital comic book, this almost looks like pixelation. And so it makes it look like this image was blown up and the definition was not appropriately, fixed, right? But it's fine. The story is called The Nomad. It's basically Jim Sub's first Conan the King story, and it's painted and drawn by Alex Horley. He hand-painted this in big canvases. Jim has told the story multiple times across the internet, and they've been working on this for quite a while, right? Richard Starkings and Tyler Smith do the lettering, and the editor here is Chris Butera. And this is basically the story of how the Nemedian Chronicle comes to be. We see this character who ends up being a bone-skinned man walk around Hyboria. He walks through this place that looks kind of like Ireland. He walks through this place that looks kind of like France. He walks through this place that's like a valley. And he walks through seasons, right? Through spring, through a stormy situation, and then through what looks like autumn, right? Based on the colors. And then he finally makes it to Aquilonia. He arrives at the palace in Tarantia, I think is what it's called. And he begs for an audience with Conan. Of course, the people at the gates tell him that Conan has way more important things to do than talk to him, and he won't have time to fit him in, right? And so the man says, okay, I'll wait. And he sits down, and for a few hours, he waits until Conan, curious, calls him in, right? And so Conan admires his discipline and asks him what he wants. The man reveals himself to look like Elric, or Necron, or whatever other, pasty white wizard character you want to think about. And he says that he has traveled long and far to bring a gift to Conan the Cimmerian. And what he wants in return is 3 days of hospitality. So basically making Conan wait, right? And also 3 days is kind of like a religious significant number, right? It took 3 days for Jesus Christ to be reborn and, stuff like that. And so he agrees. Conan agrees to this. He says, okay, it's a weird request, but I don't see any deceit. I know something's up, but I don't know what it is. So we'll see. We'll wait and we'll see, right? And so for 3 days, Conan and the people around him are unnerved by this man and also continuously counsel Conan to be wary of him, right? And Conan's like, yes, I know, but he hasn't done anything. So what do you want me to do about it, right? Even Zenobia, I think that's her name, the queen, is upset about it. And she tells Conan, and Conan's like, yes, I know, but he hasn't done anything, right? And so they continue on for days. And for the third day, they have a nice meal planned, right? A feast. And Conan opens the feast by, raising a toast. And when he raises a toast, the man is served wine as well. And this is when he says to Conan that he's ready. And so he basically casts a spell on Conan that forces him to relive all of his previous adventures, right? He challenges him to success, right? And so Conan gets to go through his life again, basically. He has basically the fantasy version of a reflection on your life, right? And he sees Yagkosha and this dragon and this character here that looks like he's a zombie, but I can't remember what he's from. We see him fighting Pix, and we see him in the frozen wastelands of the Nordic kingdoms up to the north. And we see him in Venarium starting his journey as Conan of Samaria, right? And then we see him battle the frost giants once again. And man, this picture here is amazing. It looks so freaking awesome. And the Frost Giant's Daughter is not necessarily my favorite story, but the imagery that always comes out of it is some of my favorite stuff, right? I have that Carrie Nord thing right there. I bought a Rob Del Toro variant as well. And this is probably my favorite bit of art here in this story as well. And then he's in a desert. Then he fights Thok, the basically unevolved human. Then I think this is a reference to No Witch Shall Be Born. And then, of course, we see him remembering Belet, who shows up in his hour of need, naked as the day she was born, because, of course, she does. And Thok transforms into one of those flying monkeys that killed her. And then we see Conan experience her death again, and in his anger, kill this monster. Tell him that, he has lived through this depression. He has lived through this difficulty. He has moved on, right? And that every year he continues, and every battle he wins, and he loves life's blood wine, basically blood-rich wine, and he still wants it. He still thirsts for it, right? Because he hasn't had his fill. And then we have this moment here of him facing a giant serpent, which I also don't know where it's from. The serpent eats him, and in a very biblical kind of looking scene, he comes out of it, right? Kind of like Jonah and the whale. And he kills it. And then he continues on to fight against Pix again in Konajahara. And this is when finally the wizard, who we basically don't have a name for, decides that it's time for him to battle Conan, right? And so they fight. And this is an awesome page here. Very, very phenomenal. And of course, Conan wins. And because he wins, he, kills this wizard. And then he's back in real life. And Conan has become immortal in only a way that certain great men can achieve, which is that his stories will be written and he will become a part of history that will not be forgotten, or at least won't be forgotten for a long time, right? And the character, the wizard, disappears. Conan and Zenobia look into the sky, and Zenobia is afraid that the wizard will come back and deal with Conan for, the disrespect he showed him by killing him. And Conan says no, that's not going to happen. He wanted something else, something that, flesh and blood cannot hold forever, which is a story worth sharing, right? And so we see, to end the story, that this wizard is the one that wrote the Numidian Chronicle at the end, right? And it ends with him writing, "Know, O Prince, that between the years when the oceans drank Atlantis and the gleaming cities, and the years of the rise of the sons of Aries, there was an age undreamed of." And it's awesome. It's freaking phenomenal, dude. Like, I love this. I'm not necessarily a big fan of meta storytelling. The idea that the story within a story, or a story about stories, at least when it comes to Western comic books, I think most of the time these types of stories fail to work. Mostly because the idea of deconstructing media is an idea that maybe has been overplayed a lot lately, right? But Jim does a great job here. And I know he does because I've read other stuff where Jim kind of does this, like, multiverse, like deconstruction type thing, and I have not liked it. Like Red Sonja Unbreakable, I think is what it was. I didn't like that story. I like the artwork and I like the covers, but the concept of the story didn't really work for me. And in this one, it does. Of course, there's differences. That story was kind of like a meet yourself in the past kind of story. This one is more of a remember yourself and then understand that will be something for the future, right? Which is different, and it's not the same, but the idea is still similar. This is a story about storytelling, and it just happens that the storytelling is obviously pulpy and awesome, epic sword and sorcery, right? And so I think Jim and Alex Hurley knocked it out of the park. It's a 10 out of 10. I freaking love this book. I really, really am happy I bought it. I'm very happy I bought, or I ordered multiple copies of it. I will buy them next week, probably, when I get paid. And I am very, very excited to see what comes next. I think that, there was a bit of a lack of focus in the last year of publication, but it seems like that's kind of going away, and that we're going to get back on track, and I can't wait to see where Jim goes next, and I can't wait to see Alex Hurley continue on with his great work, right? Because his art is amazing. Now, I don't necessarily know that we're going to see him again in any of the comic books anytime soon. I think he mentioned in one of the back matter materials that maybe he'll do a story for Savage Sword, but who knows, right? I do hope we continue to see him constantly show up as a cover artist. Maybe there should be a few weeks where the cover art for the main Conan book is Alex Hurley work. I think that'd be nice, be a pretty great way to kind of honor him for this great service that he provided all of us fans of Conan. But maybe for his worth, it's better to be on Savage Sword than on the main book. I'm not really sure, right? Then we have issue 25 of Jeff Shank's world building essays. This one talks about the Median Chronicle and the legend of Conan the Cimmerian. And because Jeff's thing is the world building aspect of Conan and Robert E. Howard, he mostly focuses on that aspect, right? The fact that with this small amount of writing, Robert E. Howard provides us with this great context that cements that these stories are legends and that these stories are, from an ancient past very, very clearly. And he kind of continues to talk about some of the other elements in the longer Median Chronicle and in other moments of Robert E. Howard's writing that help us understand these very great and large amounts of information with very minimal writing from Robert E. Howard, right? He mentions a portion where Robert E. Howard tells about all of the different kingdoms and what they do, and then another one where Conan is finally introduced, right? Hither came Conan, the Cimmerian, black-haired, sullen-eyed, sword in hand, and all of the different things that Conan ends up being, and how that really cements, Conan very clearly in basically a sentence or two, and it's very powerful, right? So that's what Jeff Hanks wrote about. Then we also have a behind-the-scenes kind of look at Hurley's abilities here, what he's doing. He drew this all on paper first, I guess, or maybe he probably did it on canvas, and then he transferred it over and painted it, and it looks freaking awesome. I love this. I think that an artist edition that has some of this stuff in large, print would be awesome. I would love to have like an oversized, colossal edition of this, right? Or a treasury edition of this issue. That would be really, really cool. And then we have finally an interview with Alex Hurley himself that tells us a little bit about his, journey with Conan and his interest. And particularly, I like that he talks about Sanku Lian, Simon Beasley, Jack Kirby, and Gil Kane being kind of major inspirations, of course, alongside Buscema and Frazetta, which makes sense. And then it talks about some work that he wants to do with other Robert E. Howard characters. And he mentions Esau Karn, who is the character from Almuric. And I really hope that we get to see Alex Hurley take on Almuric. I think that'd be phenomenal. I love that story. I haven't really been able to review it on the channel, but I will do it soon. I do love it. I think it's great. And I can't wait to see that character show up at the Savage Sword. I think that'd be really, really awesome. And if Alex Hurley's doing it, that'll be even more awesome, right? And so that is the end here. We have some cover gallery here, which is really awesome. We get to see the normal cover, and then, of course, the variant there that's cardstock, which is this one. It's a very thick cardstock, but sadly, they fucked it up, and they put this on there when I really think that they shouldn't. They should have printed it on the interior, and this could have been a poster very easily. I mean, it still can be, but it's a poster that is not as pristine as it could be. And that bothers me because that's why I paid extra money for this book, right? So I'm a bit upset about that. but it is what it is. Everything else is phenomenal. Everything else is great. What did you think? Did you read it yet? Are you not going to read it? Are you going to read it? Did you skip this book? I hope you didn't. And what are your thoughts on this? Did you get any variant covers? Which ones did you get? I got cover B and cover E because Danica Brin's art is one that I actually quite like a lot. I know that a lot of you guys didn't, but I think that her cover work in this case looks really, really awesome. It's Conan, it's Valeria and a dinosaur, or rather a dragon, right? And it looks awesome. And I think that she is a creator that deserves a second chance at Conan. And maybe she will get it at some point, right? So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, those are my thoughts here. Let me know what you thought down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys next time.